What is up, guys? Welcome to my review for Arrow Season 7, Episode 12, titled Emerald Archer, which is the 150th episode of Arrow. Now, this episode was very different from the usual. It was in a documentary style for the most part. It's not a real documentary, obviously. So, it's kind of a mockumentary, but it's not a making fun of documentaries. It's a real documentary in that universe. But the Emerald Archer documentary was mainly focused around vigilantism in America, and they even mentioned how in Gotham City and Central City they have vigilantes there as well. But this documentary mainly focuses around vigilantes in Star City, mainly around the Emerald Archer, which it's pretty cool that they're finally calling him that. I'm pretty sure China White called him that all the way back in one of the first episodes of the show, and then they never called him that again, and that's just his nickname, or like the Man of Steel or the Dark Knight of the Green Arrow. So it's pretty cool to me that they're calling him that here, and they're naming a whole documentary after that. And this documentary in this episode was handled very well. It's a different type of episode. It was a different change of pace for this episode, and as like kind of a tribute to the show, as the 150th episode of Arrow, I do think it did a pretty great job at doing that. The first 10 minutes, and every single time it came back from an ad break, there was an interview with a current character of the show, or a current character like Lance or Ragman or Thea, or even Barry Allen was in this documentary, and all of that was really awesome to see. I mean, they brought back a lot of actors, like Paul Blackthorne and Willa Holland, whoever plays Ragman. They brought back a lot of actors for this episode that is usually pretty hard to do on Arrow. They don't usually do it. I mean, Ragman has not appeared since like episode 12 of season 5, which was 2 years ago. So it is cool to see characters like those characters return, and it makes so much sense in this documentary. The whole documentary in this episode, although I do think that it should have been more of the episode, because after the first maybe 10 minutes, it was not every scene, not every scene was shot in the same aspect ratio or the same camera quality as the documentary was shot in, which I do think was a little bit jarring. I mean, it's not that much at all. Like, it was barely noticeable for the most part, but I do think if they were going to do the documentary, which they are, they probably should have just stuck to that and made it the entirety of the episode. That being said, I do think they did a rather great job with this documentary, showing things like vigilantism in America. The different episode style was definitely very refreshing for this show. I would say the best thing that this episode did with the documentary was just show more of the world and where certain characters are, like Sin. We haven't seen her in a really long time. I forgot to mention her earlier. They even showed Sarah Lance returning, and where Ragman is all this time, if Huntress is still active. They did definitely show a lot more of certain characters, as well as just the world's point of view on the vigilantism of all these superheroes. Like, it's not like that in our real world. So I do think that that's something this documentary did, and it did pretty well in this episode. But the main storyline that this documentary followed was Team Arrow, mainly Green Arrow, fighting a new and probably one-off villain named Chimera, with the rest of the former Team Arrow joining in on the fight. Now, Chimera in the comics is not a character. There are certain DC characters named Chimera, but none of them even closely resemble this version of Chimera. None of them are also Green Arrow villains, but Chimera is a guy named Kevin Meltzer here, which is also not a comic book character. It's probably an amalgamation of two Green Arrow writers, Kevin Smith and Brad Meltzer, creating Kevin Meltzer. Now, that means Chimera is an original character, so it's fine that he is a one-off villain. Like, if he was a character in the comics, I would think that it's probably a little bit of a waste to just use him once and that's it, similar to something like Komodo back in season 3, but he's an original character with a kind of cool costume, but still he's just an original character with also not the greatest motivation or backstory or anything like that. So it's fine to me that they only used him once, and he really mainly served as the antagonist of the storyline of bringing Team Arrow together, as well as this documentary. But like I said, the main focus, or really the main reason this storyline exists, is to bring Team Arrow back together, and this time, they're not going to be vigilantes. They're going to do things lawfully. Spartan, Wild Dog, Mr. Terrific, Green Arrow, and Black Canary are all working for the SCPD, which I'm guessing will lead into them becoming their own task force called Team Arrow, meaning that from now on, they are doing everything lawfully, but they are still Team Arrow, which I'm honestly very excited for. That's something that I really want to see, Team Arrow coming back together as Team Arrow, not really working with the SCPD for the most part, but the SCPD does have their back, and they're not actually vigilantes. I really hope that is what happens, but I do think this storyline did a pretty good job at accomplishing that goal of bringing Team Arrow back into the fray with, again, Chimera working as the antagonist and main villain of that storyline. All the fight scenes were great. I mean, it was pretty awesome seeing Spartan, Wild Dog, Mr. Terrific, and Green Arrow all fighting together with Dinah Drake in the background as well, all fighting one antagonist. That being said, in these pretty awesome fight scenes, Oliver Queen himself did get beat up quite a lot, which was pretty hard to watch for the most part. Not because I can't see him getting beat up because he's my favorite character or anything. It's not because of that. It's just that because Chimera himself wasn't exactly the most menacing villain of all time, and Green Arrow himself probably should have been able to beat Chimera pretty easily, but this episode made it feel like he needs Spartan, Wild Dog, and Mr. Terrific to beat Chimera, which was fine because it did make the team themselves look pretty awesome, but it also made Green Arrow himself look a little bit less awesome than he usually is, or a little bit less badass, because he did get beat up by Chimera quite a lot, and he needed the saving of Spartan, Wild Dog, and Mr. Terrific. So again, didn't love that, but I did love seeing Team Arrow fight back together and becoming Team Arrow again, and I'm definitely excited to see more of Team Arrow in the future of this season. But outside of the documentary, there was one storyline with William returning from boarding school, although technically it started out as a part of the documentary in the beginning of the episode, but then it continued and ended as completely separate from that documentary. I didn't really like the storyline. I don't think it really fit well with the rest of the episode, with the documentary and the whole Chimera storyline with Team Arrow coming back together. I don't think this William storyline really fit all too well. I do like that it created a friendship between him and Zoe in the present day, because in the future we know they're friends, but in the present day they've never really met each other. I mean, even Renee was surprised when they turned out to be friends, so I like that they did that. That's definitely true, but I mean, William has this drama here where he got expelled from school, drama with Felicity and I guess Oliver as well, which I'm not really excited for in the future of the season if it continues. I don't know. They're probably going to reveal why he got expelled. Either he did something wrong, like he hacked some systems or whatever, because they're definitely building him up to become a hacker like he is in the future, or maybe it's connected to his father being the Green Arrow. I don't know. I just don't think this storyline was well written or well acted or just good in general. It doesn't really bring down the episode that much. It's really just 3 scenes, but it is definitely the weakest part of this episode, and I'm really hoping it doesn't really continue that much. Maybe it gets resolved in the next episode. That's definitely something I'm hoping will happen. But this episode ends with a pretty awesome transition between the present day and the flash forwards of this episode, which every even episode after episode 1 is a flash forward episode, which means these are all the flash forwards we're going to get in this week and next week, which is kind of lame if that is the pattern, because it's just one scene and that is it, so that is kind of lame. But the one scene we got was pretty good. There was an awesome transition between the documentary being filmed in the present day to the documentary being watched by a character in the flash forwards. That character is a character we were introduced to in episode 8, Maya or Mia, whatever her name is, I'm not really sure. She's probably the daughter of one of the heroes of the present day, and she's also seemingly the villain of the future. She says that she hates vigilantes. Maybe that'll change. I don't know, maybe she will become a vigilante herself. We will find out. We didn't really get much of her in this episode either, aside of how much she hates vigilantes, but we also got the reintroduction of Connor Hawke, aka John Diggle Jr., a character we only really saw in one episode in Legend of Tomorrow Season 1, which was a very long time ago, and this takes place 6 years before the 2046 of that episode. Maybe the flash forwards will lead up to that if Arrow lasts that long, if maybe the flash forwards will skip a year or two to actually catch up to 2046. I doubt that'll all happen, but we are getting the return of Connor Hawke. Maybe we will get his origin story and how he becomes Green Arrow. Maybe we will see how he couldn't save John Diggle if he's still alive in the future, and that will lead him to becoming the Green Arrow of the future. We will see, but I do think that the episode had a pretty good ending, not an incredible ending or anything. I also think it's kind of a waste of this 2 weeks flash forwards, but it was also a great reintroduction to Connor Hawke, and the transition between the present day and the flash forwards was pretty awesome. But in conclusion, the 150th episode of Arrow is definitely a pretty great milestone episode. It's definitely not the best milestone episode, as episode 100, in my opinion, was a much better episode. I don't remember which episode after episode 50 was, but I doubt it was a milestone episode, or I doubt they used that as a tribute to the show. But episode 12 of season 7, Emerald Archer, the 150th episode of the show, the idea of the documentary was a great and well executed idea. The Chimera storyline was great. Seeing Team Arrow back together was awesome as well. William returning and the things in the future weren't incredible or anything, but they definitely did not make the episode any worse. Now, this isn't the greatest tribute episode ever, but it is still a pretty great episode, and I will give it a 9.5 out of 10. But anyways, share your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, as well as in the polls in the top right corner. Share your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, as well as in the poll in the top right corner of the video. And you could definitely watch Arrow Season 7 Episode 11's review, which was last week's review, in the top right corner of the video, as well in the icons. But if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.